Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to On the Mic with Mike, the premier business radio program. I'm your host, Mike King. I appreciate you being here with me. So the views expressed here are mine, have no connection to, support of, agreement with any other host or information or ads on the station. I don't work for the station. Our program just airs here on a daily basis. So join me as our cutting edge show. We uplift the community, showcase RVA in a different way. Today, we're talking to our good friends down at Poplar Springs Hospital. Lamar, welcome back to the program, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All righty. As I always say, it's a business show. Tell us who you are and what you guys do.
Absolutely. So my name is Lamar Talifer. I'm the Director of Business Development for Poplar Springs Hospital. And today I actually have two of our clinicians with me. So, Rhonda, go first.
Hi, I'm Rhonda Gurley.
Okay, can you speak up? Sorry about that.
Yes, my name is Rhonda Gurley, and I'm an acute care clinician here at Poplar Springs Hospital.
All righty.
And my name is Rachel Paz. I am also an acute clinician here. I work mostly with adolescents.
All righty. So thanks, Lamar. Ladies, you can pull up to the camera and the microphone, and we're going to talk. So really quickly, talk about what you guys do. And I said, so Lamar, you had said we're going back to school, and we want to make sure the kids and the young folks, you got your cheat sheet there, your notes there, I see.
No, sir.
All righty. So I always start off talking to people about how are kids doing? How are people doing? What's the word on the street these days as far as the kids go?
I think like when we see them at Poplar, we see our kid numbers go down during the summertime. So that's one thing, that's one trend that we definitely notice a lot of. And then when school starts back up, we start to see those, the kid census starts rising up a little bit more, but it definitely attributed to a lot of this being in school, being around other kids, the stresses of school, things like that is definitely plays a factor into that census fluctuation.
So wait a second. So you say the numbers go down during the summer.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why, because so kids are not at school with all of the pressures. Is that what it is?
I mean, I can't pinpoint and say that's exactly what it is, but that's what that's kind of the pattern that we've noticed. There's just less stress during the summer, kids being able to be home more, things like that. So not being around other kids where you have the possibility for bullying or being under the stress of trying to get into colleges or figuring out what you're going to do next. You also do a lot of transitioning between elementary to middle school to high school, things like that. So it's definitely stressful for the kids and causes a lot of the anxiety and depression that we see.
Let me ask you really quick. One of the great parts about having your own show is to ask things that you kind of wonder. What's the hardest transition? Elementary to junior high, middle school, or middle school to high school, or high school to college? What do you think?
I think it definitely depends on the person. Like it's a lot of different contexts and things like that that factor into that. I would say for me personally, my hardest transition was from high school to college. That's when I noticed a lot of my own mental health things kicking in more anxiety, being away from my family, being away from pretty much everything that you've known for however long, and just trying to make it on your own, being in a new environment where you're making new friends, having to put yourself out there. So that's when I noticed my mental.
That was my biggest transition. I do remember, even just being local, transitioning from high school to a young adult, the biggest anxiety, and when I realized it was anxiety, was transitioning from high school to college, because a lot of things your parents think they teach you, they don't, and it's a big awakening. You have to be an advocate per se for yourself, because a lot of times you want to feel like, hey, I'm an adult, I can handle these things. But in actuality, you're not prepared in a sense to handle those things. So that was my big.
So what type of programs does Poplar Springs have? So we're gearing up, going back to school. What type of programs do you guys have now for adolescents?
So we're more of an acute crisis stabilization in that regard.
So did you give that to me in English? What that says is
so
when there's some trouble.
It's a short-term crisis. Average length of stay, 3 days to 7 to 10 days, just given the severity.
Okay.
And the ability to be able to transition back into the home or whatever type of placement was there prior to coming into the hospital.
What typically happens after the stay with you guys on the acute side?
Yeah, so once we get them in a more stable position to return home, return to the community, returning to school, what we do is set them up with services. So the services that we set up is to prevent them from having to come back into the hospital setting. Obviously, this is not an ideal setting for any child to be in, especially during the school year. So we want to put those services in place. So we do that through individual therapy, intensive in-home counseling, partial hospitalization programs are all referrals that we can make to ensure that the kid is continuing to work on themselves when they discharge and preventing them from having to come back.
And which age group do you guys work with?
We work with 11 to 17-year-olds.
Okay. Alrighty, so you see the kids out there, mom and dad, the kids are out there. What are some of the signs that parents should be looking for? So now getting ready to go back to school, everybody knows all the getting the school clothes and the pens and pencils and the trapper keeper. See, you guys are probably too young to remember the whole trapper keeper.
I remember a trapper keeper.
Do you know how big those? The people don't realize that was revolutionary back then.
They were huge.
They were, yeah, that was something. So those were what my kids had, and they had to have that. And there's things that parents have to get your kids because without them, they're pressures that they do have. So as parents, what are they looking for on something that you say, hey, we need to get some help here for our child?
One of the things that I've noticed, and we are personally going through a transition where we're going from one age group to the other. So one of the things that I've been looking for just as a parent is, does my stomach hurt this morning? Oh, I'm sick. My throat hurts. Can we do some medicine? I just need to stay home today. So that's a big one, faking an illness.
And having that be like the constant every day of like a kid waking up in the morning immediately not feeling well and having that go on for an extended period of time where they're constantly having those stomach aches and things like that. A lot of times that is due to the anxiety of returning to school. And at kids these ages don't always know that that's what that is attributed towards. So that is a big one, is kind of the kids just constantly feeling sick before school starts.
When they come into your facility, it's Mike King here. This is the Poplar Springs Hour. When is it that you know that they're good to leave?
So we have a treatment team where we decide that together, and we have the patient's input during those treatment team meetings.
The patient always thinks they're ready to leave, aren't they?
Yeah.
10 seconds then.
And kids are really good about advocating for themselves for when they feel ready to leave. There's just different processes that we have to go through when they do come here. So making sure that they're willing to take medications, keeping them on a consistent schedule of taking them while they're here, and then educating them on the importance of keeping that schedule even when they go home, and having them understand that, having them be able to contract for safety, having them be able to complete a safety plan. So being able to identify triggers, warning signs, coping skills, some goals that they want to work towards, having them verbalize their commitment to aftercare so we can put those wraparound services in place and make sure that they are going to follow through with those.
I'm gonna throw something in there really fast. Rachel said something about the treatment team. So here at the hospital, our treatment team consists of the doctor, we're mental health, so it's a psychiatrist. We also have the clinicians. We're part of that team. Nursing, our outpatient sources. They're a part of our treatment team, as well as, who else is there? I'm trying to remember. Nurses. So it's nurses, doctors, dietitian, of course, the clinicians, and the patient themselves. So everyone is making a combined effort to ensure that the patient is stable and ready for discharge with all of the proper supports in place. So that's what our treatment team consists of.
Let's talk about what a good family structure means as far as, so when they leave. So you've given the safety plan to the child, you have with the parents. Let's talk about what the home environment needs to look like to get as much success as possible.
Yeah, so that's also that's a good question. So one of the things we do during those family sessions, so we make sure that we have family sessions before the kids leave, is completing that safety plan. So being able to do that with the kid and with the parent on the phone, making sure that the parent's understanding of what their triggers are, when they are starting to feel triggered, what those behaviors are. We call them warning signs. So making sure that the parent is truly understanding what those warning signs are. So when the parent recognizes it, if the kid's not able to implement their own coping skills, then the parent can assist in helping them. Just like go sit down, like listen to your music, being able to implement those coping skills when they notice that the kid is being triggered and starting to escalate in those behaviors.
Can you touch on what some of those coping skills are? So when you said music, what are some of the things that a parent could try to work and help de-escalate a situation? Or that's not something, that's for the trained professionals.
Well, not so much for a trained professional. I think everyone that's a part of the support team is a trained professional at that point. But one of the things that we see a lot of is if the home environment or the home is a stressor in terms of there is like discord between siblings or it's very loud, to simply go outside, take a walk, remove yourself from the stimulus. Aside from that, finding out what types of things can de-escalate the situation. That's something that you refer back to that safety planning piece and look at those strategies. Take a walk. Sometimes people just need like soft, calming music. What are some that you've seen, Rachel?
A lot of the kids nowadays do like the grounding techniques. So a lot of the
Excuse me, ma'am. I'm sorry.
What?
What's the grounding? What's the grounding technique?
Sorry.
I'm just.
I'm getting ready to explain.
Oh, see, I got excited. Sorry about that. It's like, okay, when you think Lamar didn't tell you that that's the way this works, and I hear something like, hold on a second, explain that.
Mike, I did tell him to explain wraparound services earlier, but
you know what? I was getting ready to drop that on him. Oh, so those are the wraparound services. Yeah, I use that now. That's in my repertoire.
So grounding techniques are essentially things that you can do to help with either anxiety or a lot of kids who experience trauma experience dissociation, where they just kind of like their mind just takes them to another level. They aren't really focused on the present moment, and that's what causes the anxiety, is when their thought processes are going out of nowhere. They're not able to calm themselves down because they just keep having these thoughts. A lot of the times the thoughts get more and more negative. And so it never ends in a good way. So the grounding technique is something you implement to kind of literally ground them, like bring them back to the present moment. This is what's happening right now. There's a bunch of different techniques you can do. There's one that I know a lot of the kids like that they do in groups is like the muscle relaxation. So you start with your toes and you squeeze them up as tight as you can for like, you count to like 10 and then you let it go. And then you move up your body, just flexing all of your muscles till you get to your whole body. You're flexing your whole body for however long, and then you let it go. And it just kind of provides that grounding for you so that you kind of get brought back to the present moment.
Let me ask you, so as we're getting ready to go to school, and like you said, it's the morning, I don't feel good, I don't want to go. What are some of the techniques that parents could use to try and offset that? Like, what happens in the morning when all of a sudden every morning like clockwork, hey, I'm sick today. I don't feel like maybe I should pass on school today. What can parents what's some of the techniques that parents could use to sort of help that?
So you can just go back. Okay, so I need to understand why are you sick every morning when it's time for school? Is there something that's changed at school? That's when you start, I guess, having the conversation. Is someone bothering you? Are you being bullied? Is there something at school that you're trying to avoid? So one of the things, again, as a parent now, one of the things I ask, how was school? What's going on at school? Are there things that are changing at school? And one of the things that we don't do a lot of is beating around the bush. We like to talk about things as they come, not as 2 and 3 weeks down the road, especially if you start seeing decreased concentration, focus, all of those things are different. Grades are slipping. Your kid can't sleep. There's like things being broken. Every time you turn around, there is something, some type of a change in your child. So one of the things that we see a lot of is people not eating. Then it goes into they're hurting themselves. So there are a lot of things that you can at home, if you start to see changes, you can address right then and there. Say, hey, we've noticed X, Y, and Z. We need to find out what's going on, what's changed, what can we do to remedy? Because as a parent, you have to advocate for your child. And if you can't advocate for your child, you can't do any of the things to remedy these situations. Whereas if your kid is being bullied, or is there's something that your kid doesn't understand, because a lot of things change, a lot of things, the easiest way to say it is just saying, hey, look, are you being bullied? Is there something that you don't understand? Because sometimes kids have been able to slide their way through whatever grade, and there might be things that they just don't understand with school. So if you haven't noticed things, if the grades and those types of things are changing, hey, is there something going on where you're not able to retain? So then that's when you go to the school and say, hey, we may need to look at this, or we may need to look at that. In terms of, is there something going on academically? Is there something going on personally? So that's when those conversations begin to be paramount, because you need to find out what's going on, what is causing these changes in my child.
Okay. One of the big things you always talk about is, I know we've had others on, was basically the call to medicine. What was your road to get there? That's one part of the question. And the other one is, and I'll bring this one up, Lamar's heard me, who takes care of the caregiver? Because caregivers, funny, exactly.
What a question.
That is a question.
Yeah,
Big time.
because you won't stop. And that's why sometimes I ask people, when do you know that, when you leave Poplar Springs, you guys hear a lot of stuff. And how does it not get in the car with you and go home, and they're little bit by little bit by little bit? But so first the draw to that space, and then the caregiver part.
I think for me, I got more involved in mental health. Like I was saying earlier, when I was in college is when I kind of noticed my own stuff going on. I took my first psychology course, and I was like finally putting down like a label to what I had been experiencing for years and years. I just had no idea, just because it was, I mean, it's not something that we always talked about in my family. And we just didn't know, like it was just not talked about. We weren't educated on what it was. So once I kind of got that education for myself, I started noticing it more, being away from home, going through all those transitions. One summer I had was having panic attacks like every day for weeks at a time. And one of them was so bad, like I made my parents take me to the emergency room. And I remember like they gave me some medicine that knocked me out. And I woke up and I was like, had that whole thought process, that epiphany of like, I don't want kids to experience this, because it's not like, you don't have to let it get to that point of having panic attacks so bad you're going to the emergency room. So helping kids figure out how they can de-escalate themselves in those moments and ground themselves, and just kind of live with anxiety, because there's no cure for it. You're going to have it regardless. You can be on medicine, you can be getting the treatment, and it's still going to be there. So learning how to live with it rather than kind of pushing it aside or pushing it down under. So that's kind of my story, like how I got more involved. I just didn't want other kids in those same situations when it could have been prevented in the first place.
For me, mine was, and it's funny, I can remember looking back, and you see all these active campus organizations while I was in college, because that's when everything hit me. I didn't think about it. It was just my mode of coping when I was in elementary school, middle school, high school, undergrad. So once I got to graduate school, I was doing my master's degree in social work. And there was this organization on campus called Active Minds. And it was the best thing ever, because you understand at that point, this is something everybody has to deal with at some point in time, whether it's you yourself or a friend. So you have to weigh it. Am I going to learn more about it, or am I going to let this continue to rule my life? So that was something that we utilized. But aside, just like right here in the Tri-Cities area, Richmond, Virginia area, you can become a part of NAMI, the National Association for Mental Illness. However, there is a stigma, and I'm not talking about it because I remember talking to my mom a little bit later on. Hey, is this normal? Have I always been this way? That type of thing. And in the Black community, we don't want to ever say anything's wrong. We just cope.
Yeah, we pull yourself up by the bootstraps.
Exactly.
We ain't got time to be like that.
Exactly. Like, you have things to do, you have goals to accomplish. So I don't want that to be a drawback for anybody. If you're struggling, or if you need some help, it's a lot of help out there. And the best thing to do is deal with it now rather than later, because it will disrupt your life. It's like having that little bit of dust under the rug and everybody walks over it. Oh, darn, hurt my foot or scuffed my shoe, that kind of thing. And after a while, that little bit of dust grows into a big mountain, and it's you can't pass it. So deal with it now rather than later, because it will come back. It'll always be.
So you guys are not going to get away from the question of who takes care of the caregivers.
Who takes care of me? I take care of myself, because how can I help someone else if I can't first help myself? So some of the things that I utilize for coping is I take a walk. We do it at work, and we just stop and we take a 30-minute walk. And even at home, we just have this thing where we do music. So it's like we have a get up in the morning and we sing a couple of songs and act a little crazy. I know my family like, oh God, here she is with the music, but that's how I unwind. That's how I deal with the pressures of the day.
Yeah. I think for me, I mean, I've been in and out of therapy, which definitely helps kind of change your perspective and have someone who kind of understands, just listen to you. We also have, like, our team is very supportive of each other. And I think, like, you can go home and try to explain your day to a friend or a family member, but they are not going to understand it as much as the people that you work with. And so I think that's been very beneficial for us, is like having a good support system here at work, because we understand it better than everyone. Like, Rhonda could come to me and I would be able to either give her advice or be able to check in with her, see where she's at. We're so better than like our family or our friends could. And it's always good to have the family and friends for support. I definitely utilize that, and I'm very grateful. Because you still, at the end of the day, need someone to
But Rachel, you're kind of popular. Do they know that you're on the mic with Mike? Okay, but you're a medical facility, so there's some serious stuff going on there.
But yeah, so just having your friends and family for support too. They understand that your job's not easy. And being able to, like, take you out of the home. Like, I know sometimes when it gets to be too much for me, I kind of shut down. I isolate myself more. So my friends are really good about noticing that and kind of pulling me out of bed and saying, all right, let's go. We gotta go. Like, we're gonna go get food. They make plans for me, so I can't say no. So I think that's also really helpful too. It's just like having that support for yourself and making sure that you are checking in with yourself. Because that's not something that we can always bring into work. It's really hard trying to teach kids how to manage their anxiety and depression when you can't even do it yourself. So, and they notice that.
One last question before we go. Are we better now since the pandemic with people getting help? Is it as frowned upon, or are we looking at it a little bit better?
I would say, being that things are starting to slowly open back up, I think it's something people are embracing a little bit more, because think about it, for what, 2.5 years, everybody was at home, and I think that will run everybody stir crazy. So from there, everybody's like, oh my God, I can't cope, I can't deal. So with that, I think everybody's just like, hey, everybody needs somebody to talk to. And I can't talk to people in my house because they may not understand, or they may not want to acknowledge that there's something wrong. But I think the pandemic has opened a lot of eyes. During the pandemic, I remember the numbers of patients coming in for help. They were really low. I think everybody was just so, oh my God, COVID. Like, it's going to be really bad for us. But as soon as some of the restrictions were lifted, I'd say within 6 months, the doors were open like church, for lack of a better way of saying it. They really were.
I think it also helps, like, with COVID, telehealth services were more utilized. And I think a lot of people starting off for the first time in therapy find that to be more comforting than going to sit in someone's office one-on-one talking to someone. Sometimes that can be really intimidating. So I think the telehealth therapy over Zoom or over the phone, things like that, definitely helps people kind of take that first step into initially going to therapy and seeking that treatment for themselves.
Well, ladies, it's been a pleasure. With the information you've given us is outstanding. Lamar, how can folks find the information about the younger folks out there?
Absolutely. So Poplar Springs is located in Petersburg, Virginia. We're a 208-bed hospital. If you are seeing any of the warning signs discussed by these young ladies here, please feel free to give us a call toll free at 866-546-2229. And as we prepare to go back to school, let's make it a very smooth school year. And if you need our services, just give us a call for our free assistance.
All righty. Well, thank you, ladies. It's been a pleasure. All righty. And one of the great parts about Lamar is he just keep rolling out the rock stars. You know, it's like he just roll from one to the next. Marquise, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
All right, ladies, thanks. Appreciate it. All righty.
Thank you for having us on.
Thanks, ma'am. All right, Marquise, how you doing?
I'm doing well, and yourself?
Pretty good, sir. Alrighty, tell us who you are and what you do, and then we can go ahead and move on with it.
Okay, so my name is Marquise Allen. I'm the Director of Recreation, Special Events, and Volunteerism for the City of Petersburg.
Oh, you're the guy with the fun stuff.
Yes, yeah. So, a lot of different activities. So we go from the babies all the way up to the seniors. So we impact a lot of people. So it is, a lot of it is fun and games.
Alrighty, really quickly, let us hear about what's happening in Petersburg. A lot of times, media doesn't give Petersburg a fair shake. Let's talk about all the great things happening down there.
Okay, so for the recreation department in the city, we didn't have a pool open for almost 2 years. So we finally got our Farmer Street pool open, and we're receiving about 60 swimmers a day. So that was one of the things that we really wanted to do. Another thing is I believe in the motto during the summer to have activities sun up and sun down. So we just finished our summer youth program where our kids went to many different places, partnered with a lot of folks. Then when we left there, on top of the pool being open, we actually reintroduced Summer League basketball with about 80 participants. So we've been going from about 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning to about 9 o'clock at night, Monday through Thursday. So that's one of the things that we really wanted to do for this summer.
One of the cool shout out to, I know the mayor is really progressive, and I think you guys got a lot going on down there. So besides that, what do you have? So you guys engage older folks too as well, don't you?
Yeah, so we partner with Tabernacle Baptist Church. So we have a senior program Monday through Thursday. We provide transportation in conjunction with Tabernacle. They get hot meals every day. Bingo is probably the number one thing that they love to do, where we give them prizes from it. So our senior program is extremely solid. And in the fall, we're looking at taking them to many different places, Williamsburg Black History Museum and things of that sort, just to get them out, because I think the pandemic has slowed that down, especially for our senior population.
Let me ask you, how long you been in the position that you're in now?
I started January 3rd.
Okay, but you heard what it was before that. What have you guys learned coming out of the pandemic that's changed the way you engage people?
So, you definitely have to be creative in our marketing approach. So really being able to reestablish our social media presence. We're in the process of starting with Instagram too, but one of the ways to engage is actually going to the churches, meeting the people meeting as many folks in organizations that you can, doing things like today. So I met Mr. Talaferro by going to the Rotary Breakfast Club.
Let me explain something to you. Don't go. Yo, man, don't go. Next thing you know, you'll be the president. They say that's how they get you. I came down from the West End, Richmond. Next thing you know, I'm like, no, not showing up, because next thing you know, I'll be there every.
And so Mike, so yeah, he came and spoke. He was sharing all the things that he was bringing to Petersburg. I said, we have to get him on your show. So I connected him.
So what you guys, Petersburg is really doing a lot of great things. Sometimes you guys are like, the media is always going to jump on to the things that's sensational. But I mean, like you're saying, getting a pool open, you better believe that's a big deal.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think I was on, or my team was on every media outlet in Central Virginia. So it was a hot topic from 6, 8, and 12, and also your newspaper. So that was a big deal. That pool has been open or was open. There's a lot of history with it. I would say, 40 years worth of history. So being able to look at it, get it drained, get it clean, and get it back open. And then also cosmetically want to make changes. So we bought new umbrellas, new signs, new fans, the whole nine. So we wanted to change the perspective a little bit and provide a quality service. And then trying to hire lifeguards. I think lifeguards has been a regional challenge. So being able to go in Indeed, and then we had to pay our lifeguards a little bit more than a lot of the other localities. So we started our lifeguards at $17.50 an hour. And that was able to allow us to attract some.
One of the things, Marquise Allen, City of Petersburg, is here on the mic with Mike. You can follow us on social platform, which is ESPN Richmond 106.1, The Choice 105.3, as well as International Business Growth Radio. A lot of things happening in the Tri-Cities there. Mr. Allen, let's talk about, as you guys are moving on to the fall, what happens now? School is getting back in session. You guys are back into the swing of things. What happens to the recreation programs down there?
So we'll return back to our senior program. And then outside of that, we're introducing blast ball, which is an introduction into T-ball. So that's for your 3 and 4 year olds where we'll do that. We have partnered with Fort Lee. So we're bringing back youth soccer for 12 and under. So we're going to transition to that. The YMCA is doing after school programming at every school before and after. So we're going to try to help and collaborate with the YMCA of Petersburg. On top of our senior programs, Trunk or Treat is another special event. We just finished our back to school kickoff at the complex, Petersburg Sports Complex, where we had almost 2,000 people attend that. So that was a great kickoff to get our youth back into the mode of returning back to school.
One of the things that people always talk about, a viable city. Let's talk a little bit about what that means to the constituents, the residents of Petersburg, when the city is being aggressive on making things happen with those quality of life things.
I always say quality of life is recession proof. So regardless of where you're at, you have to, quality of life is important. I think COVID taught us that. So a lot of us working from home, it taught us the importance of being healthy, going out and exercising and doing things of that sort. So I wanted to focus on youth programs, but we're also going to advertise an adult co-ed softball league and an adult co-ed kickball league. So, we want to try to get some of our health numbers up due to our lowest ranking in the state. So we're going to do things for the youth, also the adults and the seniors. But I will say this, folks do find a way, and passive recreation is beginning to be extremely important in regards to working out without necessarily having to put anything out. Just walking around the track, walking through a trail, just enjoying a park. So those are some of the amenities that we're really going to try to work on.
How can people get information about what you guys have going on?
So we have City of Petersburg Recreation and Leisure Service Facebook page. We also have our City of Petersburg Recreation website as well. And then as always, they can also contact our office, which is 804-324-4015.
Once now, see, I don't know, you don't understand the way it works is now you got a place when you guys have something going on to let us know. You don't just have to give a shout out to 6, 8, and 12 in the newspapers. You got a place as far as that, where one of the great parts about Poplar Springs is they always make a way for us to come down there and they support the community big time. Alrighty, very quickly, what was your path to go over to government public service?
I've always aspired to be a recreation basketball coach. So I coached at Evangel Christian, and then I volunteered with the Squires Foundation for a number of years. So right when I was at the age of 19, I went into coaching. I got married, and my wife said, "Hey, you know what? Coaching AAU and coaching at a small private school is not cutting the bills. Or it's not paying the bills. It's not cutting the mustard." So at the same time, one of the things I did is I always liked working with youth. I always liked being a part of sports. So I started out at 14 and a half years old at Goochland County Parks and Recreation. And all the way through college, I always had a Parks and Rec job. So
Okay.
it went from Goochland to Henrico to the city of Richmond. And then my last stop was Dinwiddie, and I was in Dinwiddie for about 8 years. And my last position was Assistant Director of Recreation.
But congratulations, man. It is important on what you're doing. One last time, how can people find you guys out there?
Our Facebook page, so the City of Petersburg Parks and Leisure Services, we're on Facebook. If you go to the City of Petersburg website, you will find our website on our page or on the homepage. And outside of that, we're getting ready to establish that Instagram account. So next time I come on board, I will be able to talk about that and how we're looking at some other social media outlets to explore.
That's right, man. Keep us informed. We'd like to thank you for coming on the Mic with Mike. We are the best business radio program around. Why? Because we get the best guests. A lot of great things going on down in Petersburg. We shout out to the mayor down there. You know, he's been on the program a couple of times. You know, you guys got some big things going on. Let them know. Come back on the Mic with Mike when you guys got breaking news.
Absolutely, will do. Thank you for the opportunity.
All right, appreciate it. Thanks, Lamar. Thanks, man. Take care now. Have a good one, folks. On the Mic with Mike, Poplar Springs. We'll talk to you soon.